welcome to Art 4. So this is what we're going to create this week. It is a three-dimensional artwork created using a cereal box. So hopefully you've got one of those. If not, you'll have to eat a lot of cereal or take the cereal out and put it somewhere safe. Make sure you ask your mum or your dad or your grown-up who's looking after you that you make sure you ask them before you do it, before you go emptying cereal all over the floor. We don't want that. So a cereal box, you need some printer paper and just felt tips or pencil crayons, whatever you want. And this is a really fun project. It is three-dimensional, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and just move the camera so that you can see that it's three-dimensional. Okay, so as you go through the video, you'll be able to see how I've created that effect. Okay, and it's actually standing up against my wall, so I can turn the camera a little bit that way. Okay, and you might be able to see a little bit better that it's a 3D kind of artwork. Okay, so things are standing out from the background. Okay, which is really good fun. And it's a detailed project this week. Okay, so lots of, you know, drawing and things like that. But the main thing is you do not have to make it like mine at all. Okay, I've chosen to do a Harry Potter one because I do know that Harry Potter is quite a popular theme. And so you might kind of enjoy what I've done. The video will show you how to create one like this, but obviously you literally can do whatever you like with this. Okay, so if you're into Pokemon, you could make a Pokemon one. If you're into you know, dinosaurs and things like that, you could do one like that. If you want to do space, you could do space with rockets and planets. If you're into see kind of like fantasy things with dragons and mysterious creatures and that kind of thing, you can do one that's based on that. You could do it on your favorite TV show, you know, or your favorite TV cartoon, and you draw the characters. Okay, and what I would suggest is, you know, use Google to have a look at the images and try and kind of get your characters to look kind of as close to how you want them to look as possible. So if I zoom in a little bit there, that's probably quite a nice angle for you. It's quite weird doing a film without it being on my tripod, so I'm trying to hold it steady. But you can see I've got Hermione, I've got Ron, and I've got Harry Potter there, and I've got little Hagrid in the corner. I've managed to get the flying car in and the Whomping Willow, but they're all three-dimensional, so they stand out from the background, okay? So have a go at this, let your imagination run wild. Okay, it's not too tricky. You've just got to remember a few things which I point out all the way through the video so that you are hopefully going to be able to create something that's as fun as this. I really enjoyed this one. It was really nice to do something three-dimensional and not just flat. So hopefully you've got a cereal box, hopefully you've got some felt tip pens, and hopefully you can create something really fantastic. Underwater themes, Pokemon themes, cartoon themes, any theme you like, really. You could just make a whole new world, really. That's the idea. Okay, so imagination central this week. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so here are the things that you're going to need for this week's tutorial. So I've got some A4 paper, just printer paper like usual. I've got a Pritt stick, or a glue stick if you've got one would be great. I've got a black Sharpie, and I've got a selection of felt tips here, different colours. Obviously you have lots of those at home, so you'll be able to choose what you would like to use. If you want to do this in pencil crayon, you can, so you don't have to use felt pens. I'm just choosing to for mine as they're around in my house at the moment. I've got two different kinds of fine liner just to show you what you could use. So one's a nice kind of ink nib, and the other is just a normal biro that you might have lying around. A nice sharp pencil to do your drawings with, a pencil sharpener just in case, a rubber as in case we need to edit, which often we do, and it's very useful to have one to hand, and a pair of scissors. And usually when I've mentioned this before, try and make sure that they've got a nice rounded tip if you're going to be using them on your own. For this project, if you maybe need a parent or a grown-up to help you to cut the box, that's fine, okay? Because obviously the other thing we're going to use is a cereal box. Ooh, that's very close, but I've got a Weetabix box so you can see that. Okay, so we're going to need that as well. The cardboard box needs to be roughly the same size as your A4 piece of paper if you can make it. Mine's a little bit smaller, but if that's the case, that's fine. I'll show you how to work with that one as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move all the things out of the way and then just reset the camera so that you can be able to see the whole of the Weetabix box as I'm working on it and how to take it apart and things like that. Okay, so we'll get started. Brilliant. Okay, so I've got my cardboard box. It's just a cereal box. A cereal box is probably the best thing to use, as the card is thin enough for you to be able to cut on your own if you can, and it's also kind of sturdy enough to stand up at the end of the project when we're finished. Okay, so mine is just a family pack of Weetabix. I've eaten all the cereal inside, so there you go. So what we're going to do is, obviously you'll have one end that's open, okay, so you're just going to go ahead and open the other end. You don't need to worry about it being too neat, just try and do it as carefully as you can by just sliding your finger along the end to open up this section. Okay, and then what you're going to do, the best thing to try is to try and find the seam on the edge of the box. So they're usually along one of the long edges. So if you have a little look, I'm just going to turn around and I can see my seam is here. Okay, and there's a little ridge, which means I can peel the cardboard away nice and easily. And if you just put your finger, or get a grown-up to help you, along that seam, like so, it comes away really easily. There we go. And you then have a lovely big area of cardboard to work on, okay? And you'll be able to put your paper inside that. Okay, so that's your first stage. Obviously you can see that I'm working on the flat surface. So once you've got your cardboard unfolded, what you're going to do is you're going to take your piece of A4 paper, because we're going to use this to draw on, so you're not drawing on the cardboard because the pens and things won't show up. And what you're going to do is you're just going to have a little look and see how much of your cardboard your A4 paper will cover. So you can see mine's going a little bit onto this edge here and a little bit onto this edge here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my A4 paper fit into this section here, where we've got nice straight lines that will help us to cut out. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do next. So taking your scissors, you just want to be careful with this, okay? And if you need a grown-up to help, that's fine. And you're going to look at the line running up here, and you're going to cut nice and neatly, and just take your time along the seam of the box, along the edge where it was folded up. And that's your first cut. So you'll have this section, which we can use for our characters later. Okay, so that's just our other side of the box. I'm going to put that out of the way for now. So what you're left with is this little flap here, which we also want to take off. So again, you're just going to repeat the same thing, using the line here to help you. Okay, and if you get a grown-up to do it, I'm sure they'll be able to follow along as well. It's not too tricky. So just carefully, and just take your time. Try and cut as straight as possible. Obviously it doesn't matter if it's not perfect. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this little flappy bit now, but I'm going to keep those in case I want them for my spare items later. And again, we're going to get rid of these bendy edges, because obviously we don't want our pop-up box to be wobbly. So I'm just going to take off the top section, and again I'm just using the line to help me to get it straight. Okay, and again on this edge I'm using this line here just to help me to cut my box so it's into just a piece of cardboard. Okay, and it's quite thin, so it'll be able to bend up. I'm not going to do that yet. Okay, so now that you've got your section of cardboard, you can then take your A4 piece of paper, and I've got mine portrait, not landscape but portrait. Okay, and what you're going to do is you're going to put your cardboard on top of your A4 sheet, and if it was me, to save me the cutting out, I'm going to put it as close to the edge at the top and as close to the edge as the side as I can get, and then I only have to draw and cut around this area. So that's what I'm going to do next. So just using your pencil, you're just going to use the edge of the box almost like a ruler, and you're just going to draw down the side. And don't worry if you've got a little bit at the edge, that's fine, and you're going to draw along the bottom. So you've got a little template. When you remove the cardboard, you can see I've got a little line there ready for me to cut. Okay, so then scissors again, and you're just going to cut along the lines that you've drawn so that your paper will fit onto your box, okay, and you'll see why that's important as we go along, because it helps us with the pop-up sections. Okay, so I'm just going to go carefully, and it's not too tricky. Hopefully you should be able to cut nice and neatly along the straight line, but as I said before, if you want a grown-up to give you a little hand with this, that's absolutely fine. I'm sure they wouldn't mind just doing that for you if you need a little bit of help. And if you haven't got a cereal box, you can always come back to this video when you've eaten the cereal in your cereal box. That's what I did, okay? So that's why I haven't done a pop-up one before, because I've had to wait until my cereal box was empty. Okay, so once you've got your piece of paper, okay, we're going to start adding the background and the foreground. So when we finish this, we're going to have the top section of the page is going to flip up, and it's going to be your backdrop for whatever you decide to create. And the bottom section is going to be the foreground, or the ground in front, and then your figures will stand on this bottom section if you're choosing to do figures. You might choose to do buildings or whatever. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so obviously you'll have seen that I'm going to do a Harry Potter kind of theme. So you can choose whatever you like. Okay, you could do Jigglypuff in a disco, you could do your favourite characters from your favourite TV show in one of their favourite settings. You can make it up completely, so you could have an alien planet with little aliens and rockets and things. Literally, this project is just for you to use your imagination. I've chosen to do Harry Potter because I think it might be quite popular and quite a few people like it. I definitely like it, and I'm going to attempt to do the Whomping Willow. We're going to put them 3 main characters in, and if I can, I might get a little Hagrid in, but I don't know, so I'm just going to see how I go. Okay, so it can be anything. That's what you need to know. So it doesn't have to be the same theme as mine. It's just the technique that we're looking at, okay, that will help us to make our pop-up like stadium kind of thing. Okay, so your cardboard is obviously out of the way over here. You don't need it for now. Okay, we're going to fold it and glue the paper on at the end, and that is basically so that your pens don't go through the glue, because you know sometimes when you put glue on the back of the paper and then you try to draw over, the glue kind of seeps through and then you can't draw as nicely. So we're going to do all the drawing on the piece of paper that's the right size. That's really important that we cut it to the right size before we start the drawing, so that we're not drawing on the edges and we get a little bit cut off. Okay, so first thing we're going to do with our piece of paper to help us to have the right background and foreground, we're going to fold our paper just in half. Okay, and you're just going to try and get the edges nice and neat, and they might not be perfect, but that's okay. So you're going to do a little fold and just press firmly, and then open your paper back up, and what you'll have is a little line along here. So what you can do, you can use a ruler for this. I'm not going to. I'm just going to put in a little line there, and what this does is it separates the foreground or the ground from the background. Okay, and this is going to flip up at the end and it will stand like that. Okay, so we want the actual characters to be able to be seen, and they'll come out from here, and I'll explain how to do that in a minute. But the first bit we're going to do is we're going to do the background for our pop-up artwork. So as you know, I've chosen to do a Harry Potter backdrop. So what I did was I did go onto Google and I had a little look at some images of the Hogwarts castle, because I want to put that in the background, and I'm going to add a little bit of detail, not too much, but you can pick and choose what you would like to do. And as I said, you don't need to use felt tips. You can use a mixture of felt tips and pencil crayon. It's totally up to you. You can just use all pencil crayon or felt tips. It will work either way. Okay, and if you're not doing Hogwarts and you're doing something Pokemon-esque or I don't know, your own thing, that's fine. Okay, decide what you want to do. Whichever medium you want to work in will work. Okay, so I'm basically going to try and use this as a kind of a night sky up here. That's kind of the effect I'm going to go for, I think. So I'm going to have Hogwarts kind of in silhouette, and I might try and do the flying car up here, maybe some stars and some moons and some things like that. Okay, so hopefully we'll be able to just get started with it, and you can see what mine is going to look like. So I'm using this as the ground, the horizon line, okay? So the castle is going to come up from that ground, and as you know, it stands on a little bit of a hill, and I'm putting it to one side, so I'm not putting it completely at the front, and I'm just going to copy, so that's the little hill at one side, and I'm going to put the hill going up on the other side, and I'm just sketching these in, okay? And then our castle comes straight up, okay? And you can look at this on Google, you could print it out, or you could just have a little look at the images, and I'm just doing a simple kind of silhouette, okay? And I know there's a little bit of rock at this side as well, because it's obviously a little bit of a mountainous kind of area, isn't it? So once you've got your straight edge on that side, you can do another straight edge on this side, so they're kind of fairly even. Okay, and obviously the towers are going to go quite high, that's the idea, and then my car might go over here, okay? So again, like, you know, with yours, you can just rub out and draw and re-edit and all of those things that you would normally do. So I'm going to put in 2 little towers here, okay, because I know that they're at the edge there, okay, and I can come back to these and put in the details as I go. Oh, whoops. There's a little straight section. Okay, and I might put a little bit of detail in there that you'll see when I come to draw it later. Hopefully you can see the drawing developing so far. And then it goes up a little, and again I'm just copying. I've actually got a picture of it in front of me on my laptop while I'm filming. Okay, so you can do that too, there's no problem with that. Okay, and if you're doing something else, well, it's totally up to you to use your imagination and decide what kind of backdrop you might have. And you can make it as complicated as you want, really. Okay, so if you're doing space, you know, you can have planets in the background, you could have the Milky Way in the background. If you're doing a Pokemon, you might just have like a nice cartoon kind of sky. If you want to do an underwater scene, this could be the, you know, a nice sea background with a mermaid or whatever, or whales or anything you like, really. Okay, I'm just doing this one as a Harry Potter one, but the theme is totally up to you. Then it slants up a little bit, and then we put in this lovely big kind of Hogwarts tower that we're all used to seeing. So it goes quite high at this point, and the roof is very pointed, the little turret. Okay, and I'm going to come back in just a little bit, and then down again, and then there's more little towers just going down like so. So I'm just thinking about putting in those little levels of detail, and then it drops down, and a little kind of sideways line there. And I'm just drawing this from, you know, the picture I've got in front of me, but obviously you can use your imagination, and you might have a picture of Hogwarts that you want to copy if you're doing one, or you might have an image in your mind that you want to create. Okay, and I'm just adding in, so you can see it's starting to look a little bit like Hogwarts now, adding in some more turrets as I'm getting towards the bottom. There's a little flat area, and then one more turret here, and my line might not quite meet, but that's okay. So I'm just going to go down like so. Okay, so hopefully you can see my outline quite neatly now. Okay, and I'm just going to put it in a little heavier, okay, so that you can see what I've drawn, because I'm going to go over this in black, like I say, to make like a silhouette. And then I'll do the sky probably dark blue, I think, so it's almost like, or maybe a sunset perhaps. Okay, I haven't quite decided, and that's the fun thing about this project, because you can just make it up almost as you go along, so long as you've got your basic idea in place before you start. Okay, so that's my Hogwarts castle. So I'm just going to edit that little bit just so it's not confusing for you. Okay, and then if you wanted to, okay, you could add in, you know, little windows in here that you could colour in yellow. I'm not going to put too many in. I might do one in the tower there. I might do some down here. Just little slit, small windows. Doesn't need to be a lot. That might be the Great Hall there, mightn't it? And I might do another little one there, and maybe a couple along here. Okay, so you can decide what you would like to do. I'm not putting too many in, and I'm mainly leaving this section kind of dark, because obviously the hill would come kind of cross like that, like it's built into the side. Okay, and if you wanted to include the hill and do that section a different colour, you can do that, and you can just add in your own details. Okay, But if you're doing your own thing, then that's fine as well. Okay, so at this point in the background, we've got our outline there. Okay, I'm going to put in, because I want it to be nighttime, so I'm going to put in, I'm just going to draw them out. Okay, as I say, you can just use your imagination for this. Okay, so I'm going to put in some little stars in the background that I'll probably colour in yellow against the dark blue, but I want to add a little bit of interest on this side to the picture. Okay, and I'm going to put the moon, I think, behind the castle. Okay, or actually maybe I might do it coming off the side here. Okay, so I might just put in the moon up above. Okay, and I might put some little craters in there, but again, this is just you using your imagination to decide what you might like your background to look like. Okay, because obviously mine is mine, yours will be yours, and you might not have chosen to do Harry Potter at all. So I'm going to put the car in this section here, and I think it's a Ford Anglia. I think it's an old-fashioned car. Okay, so I'm going to have a go at drawing that. So I'm going to kind of drawing it going upwards, kind of into the, as if it's kind of flying away from Hogwarts. Okay, so I am going to just start probably with the roof, and I'm not going to make it too big because obviously we want it to look like it's going way in the distance. Okay, so the roof, a little sloping line for the windscreen, a little kind of bonnet, the headlight. Okay, and obviously, you know, you can have a go at drawing your own style of car. I know that it's got kind of a little bump at the back and a curve, and then into the boot here. Okay, so it's kind of looking a little peculiar at the moment, but don't worry, it'll all come together in a minute. Okay, so there's our headlights, like so, and then we're going to go along, put in the wheel here, like so, and a little further back, and a back wheel, like so, and then just join, and you can put your little exhaust on there if you want. Okay, so it's kind of got, it's got a little red tail light which we can colour in red later, and I'm going to put the headlight on the front, and then from the headlight what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little triangle coming out that I'll colour yellow for the headlights. Okay, because obviously my sky is going to be kind of probably dark blue, and then inside I'm going to put in the front kind of window there, a little window here next to it, and then a small one kind of going round the back like so. So we've got three little windows in the side. Okay, and then obviously you can put in your door. Okay, so you might just do a little line. It doesn't need to be very clear, and you can put in the little handle. Okay, so you can colour this car whatever colour you'd like. I think it's pale blue actually in the films, isn't it? So you could do that if you want, and if you want to put a little silver or grey section in the middle of your tyres, you can do so. So it looks like kind of he's flying away. And then anything you put in front, when you lift this up, okay, you'll have enough room at the front. And we're going to cut this, so there'll be some sections of the tower that'll move forward, okay, and that's fine, don't worry about that. Okay, so you can see my background there. I had a good go at drawing it. Okay, my moon's in place. Okay, I'm going to do, you know, a couple more stars on this side so it looks, you know, a little fuller, maybe just one just above the car. And I'm not worrying too much about the empty space at the bottom, because you'll see as we go along that we don't need to worry about that so long as it's the same colour as the background. And I might just put in maybe two more, maybe just one more here and here. And as you can see, I'm making it up as I go. I'm being quite creative and just letting my kind of imagination decide what I want to put in where. Okay, so that is the backdrop. Now yours can be whatever you like, as I've said. Okay, I keep repeating it because it doesn't need to be the same as mine. Okay, I'd probably really like to see some really different ones. Okay, so an underwater one, an alien one, a space one, a Pokemon one, your favourite characters from your TV show. You could have, you know, a Pokemon in a peculiar setting like a disco or something. You can literally make this whatever you like, okay, so long as you have a background and a foreground. Okay, so with Harry Potter, what we know is obviously Hogwarts is kind of set in the countryside, isn't it? And actually, I live very near to Hogwarts, the castle that was used in the filming, because it's Alnwick Castle, isn't it? So we all live quite near. If you don't live near, we're quite close. So the foreground just becomes kind of like the ground. There doesn't need to be anything major work done on here, okay? I think that there's a lake, and I think that the Whomping Willow is near that lake. That's what I'm trying to think of. So if that's the case, you could put in some detail along here. If you're going to do a disco floor, for example, you know, you could put in the squares along there and colour it in, you know, all different colours as if the disco floor was lighting up. If you were doing an underwater one, you could make this the sand, kind of with the lovely waves going along here, and you could have some little crabs or little shells or some seaweeds going along there. Okay, so just have a little think about something that could be not too, it doesn't need to be complicated, because we're going to use the cardboard to add in those extra details, okay? So I'm basically going to do almost like a little path going towards the castle. Okay, that's probably what I'm going to do, and then I can put my characters on either side, because you've got to leave enough room for them. Okay, so I'm probably just going to have my path come in the middle. Okay, and again, like I said, if you cut it out, it doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm going to do kind of a curved path like so, that's coming towards the foreground, so it's getting larger and then it gets smaller as it reaches the castle. And I might just do, you know, the path going up, because I haven't quite decided yet whether I'm going to colour this natural colour, you know, like a stone, and then have a black background. I haven't quite decided yet, so I'm just drawing it as if I might use that section, because I'm not quite sure yet, which is fine. Okay, so I've put in my path, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start just adding in the little extra details. So I might put in the lake down here. Okay, and you're just going to think about, you know, putting in, it doesn't need to be a lot. That's the kind of the idea, because your characters are going to stand up on the front. Okay, so at that point, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to start colouring the background, okay? And you want to do the colouring first, so that when you stick it onto the paper, when you stick the paper onto the cardboard, okay, the background is complete, and then we'll cut the background, okay, so that it will all stand up and we'll fold it, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the video at this point like I do normally. Okay, I'm going to colour all of my background and all of my foreground so you can see how it looks before we stick it onto the card. Then I'm going to show you how to cut the card so that the sections will stand up, and then what I'll show you is how to create the little details, like the Whomping Willow that I'm going to put in. I definitely want to do that, and I'm probably going to put in Harry, Hermione and Ron in there as well. Maybe on the other side, okay, or them on this side and the Whomping Willow on this side. We'll see, okay? So I'll stop it at this point. You can watch me colour, okay, but I'll speed it up so you don't have to wait too long. And as I said, you can do with whatever you like with this tutorial. just watch me as I coloured in my pop-up artwork. As you can see, I've added quite a lot of detail, and the idea behind this is obviously that it's almost supposed to be like a little stage set. So you want the background to be detailed, you want the foreground to have, you know, a little bit of interest in it. So, you know, if you are doing like the sea floor, you know, think about what kind of things you might add to it to make it a little bit more interesting. If you're doing, you know, a space kind of theme and you've got planets in the background, what kind of, you know, surface might you be standing on? Would it have lava? Would it have this? Would it have that? You know, you can make it a fantasy background where you could have volcanoes in the background, you know, you could have a dragon flying, and then you could have this section as, you know, rocks with a path going up. You can have it like a cartoon background. You can have it really whatever you like, okay? So have a little think about your ideas and then have a go, because it doesn't have to be the same as mine, okay? I'm just using this as an example, so feel free, as I say, to just make your own design up as you go along. I've just realised I've missed a little headlight there. Okay, so at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to put the background, I'm just going to fill that in, I'm going to put the background onto the piece of cardboard that you originally started with, because at this point our background is completely full, okay? And what you will notice is the horizontal line, the horizon line, the sky, if you're doing one, comes right the way down to meet that line, okay? And that's really important for when we flip it up, okay? And the same with the ground goes right up to that horizon line, okay? And obviously this section is flat, but we're going to put in the bits that will stand up in a minute, and you'll see how to do that, okay? And hopefully it'll work out really well. So think about your background being detailed, think about you having your whole bit of paper coloured, okay? You don't want any white edges or anything like that, you know, so try your very best to fill the whole lot. It actually didn't take too long once I'd drawn it out, because I was using felt pens. Felt pens are a little bit quicker perhaps than you know, pencil crayons and things. What you might have noticed here for the moon and for the castle and for the path was that I used a pencil, and I used the kind of the side of the pencil, and then I rubbed over it, okay, to get that nice stone effect. And I used my fine liner just along here to put the details in. And again with the path, I added the stones using the fine liner. I blended the pencil with my fingers, and then I added some little green, like it's almost like it's mossy. You know, the path that's going up to Hogwarts is kind of mossy. I don't know whether it is, but that's how I felt I wanted to do it. And then with the lake, I tried to add a little bit of dark blue and a little bit of light blue, and the same with the grass, 2 shades. And these trees I just added in just for a little bit of interest at the bottom. I don't know how that will work when we cut it, but that's okay. We'll just try it and see, and you can do the same, okay? So it should work. Right, so what we're going to do at this point is we're going to bring back in our cardboard. Okay, and I would suggest you stick it on the inside of the cardboard, okay, so that your design doesn't try to come through behind your felt tips, okay? So what we'll do is we are going to need quite a bit of glue, okay? So you don't want to be scrimping on the glue, okay? So I would suggest that you do this carefully, okay, on a tablecloth, or you know, I've got a piece of paper underneath mine, and you need to put it all over. So sometimes in school, teachers will tell you to use the glue sparingly, okay, but I'm not in school today, so I'm kind of thinking that we want to use lots of glue, because we want the cardboard to stick when you cut it, okay, that's the important thing. So try and put the glue, you know, all over, okay, not just around the edge like you might do at school, because this is obviously a crafty kind of project. So just hold it down and make sure you do all the edges, okay? And normally we would say that would be enough in school, but we want to make sure that the whole lot is kind of covered really well with the glue. So I'm just taking my time, okay, and I'm checking, I'm going over. Now if you haven't got Pritt Stick and you've got PVA, which is like the runny glue, that is fine, okay, just be careful with it. Right, so once I've got my glue, I'm going to lift it up, and whichever way is easiest for you, this is the easiest way for me, I'm going to put my cardboard underneath, okay, like so, but you can do it the other way around. You could just put the cardboard on top, and then I'm going to try and get, and this is where you might need a little bit of grown-up help if you're a little bit younger, okay, and I'm going to then press everything really firmly down, okay, because we don't want the background to peel away from the cardboard. And you can see I've got pencil all over my fingers from doing that drawing. Okay, so I'll take the paper away so you can see. So that is what you're left with, and it's quite, you know, stiff. I've got the Weetabix thing on the back, and you can see it's just slightly bigger, okay, and if you want to, you could get a grown-up to trim that off. I'm not going to do that at the moment. Okay, so what you've got is you've now got your background, okay, mounted onto your piece of cardboard, okay. The way that we're going to do the addition of the characters into your background, whatever it is, you might be adding a mermaid to a watery background, you might be adding a Pokemon to you know, a Pokemon background that you've chosen, you might be adding some of your favourite characters from your favourite kind of cartoon, TV show, whatever it is that you've decided to do, we're going to show you how to add the characters, okay? So at this point you're going to need your scissors. What I would recommend is that you take a minute to wash your hands, okay, just in between, in case you've got glue on them. You're not going to need the glue again for a little bit, so you can just put it to one side, make sure you pop the lid on, okay, so it doesn't dry out. Okay, so scissors is what you're going to need next, okay. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to make the fold, okay, and you'll see why it's so important to put the glue all over, okay, because we want this bit, especially in the middle, to really stick when you cut it. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to look at this horizon line, okay, and basically, scary, ooh, you're going to fold your picture in half, okay, and you're aiming to press really firm, okay, to get a really nice fold, okay. Once you're happy with it, you can put it down and even just, you know, push your finger or your thumb along it just to make sure that that really does stand up, okay. And so you're going to end up with the fact that the background will stand, okay. And I'm not sure if you can see that totally brilliantly on my video, but I'm hoping you can get the idea, okay, because it's quite hard to film from above and get the idea that the thing is standing up, but hopefully that works, okay, and I can show you it properly at the end when I can turn the camera around, okay, but at the moment, obviously, because I'm filming, I don't want to turn that around just yet. Okay, so at this point, this is the point where you can finish any little details that you've missed, okay, because you'll be able to see it a little bit more clearly about how it's going to look at the end. Okay. So this is where you've got to think about where your characters are going to go. So if it's your Pokemon, if it's your mermaid, if it's whatever it is, if it's your dragon, whatever is going to be in. So I want the Whomping Willow to be here, okay? Because I think that this area could do with a little bit of something here. So I might do the Whomping Willow in front of those trees perhaps, okay? I might put it over here near the lake. I could do that as well. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to have the characters here, so maybe Harry, Ron and Hermione might be here in the middle, you know, near the path, and then I'll have something over here, either Hagrid maybe, and then the Whomping Willow over this side. That's what I'm going to do. So Hagrid's going to go over here, and the children are going to go here, and the Whomping Willow is going to go there. So what you need to do is you need to decide this in your head. So you're hearing me talking through my process of what I'm thinking of doing. So originally I was thinking about having the tree over here, but actually I might want it over here because it's quite big, okay, and it could go in front of the castle. That might be quite nice, okay, and Hagrid's quite tall, so he might look good against the trees, okay. So really just take the time, just have a little think, because once you've cut this, then you can't go back. That's the bit, okay. So I'm going to think that I'm going to have to estimate, okay? So I'm going to basically put one section here, and one section on this side, okay? So this is where you might want a grown-up to help you. If you feel nervous about doing it yourself, okay, then that's fine. Now you're not going to cut very far, so let's have a go. We're going to remember roughly, I mean, if you wanted to, I mean, this might help. Let me just have a little think, because I'm trying to help you with this as well. So if I think that I want it to be roughly there, okay, so he's going to be kind of here, I can put a little mark on my paper where I roughly want to make my cuts, and then when I fold it, I can see those cuts and I could put them onto the box like that, if that helps, okay? So, or you can just do it freehand. So the idea is that you work out roughly where these are going to be. You're going to fold your box, your cardboard, in half, And then, this is the tricky bit, I'm going to draw with Sharpie to show you what I'm going to do. So my mark was here. So I'm going to cut up these two lines, okay? And then my next mark might have been here, okay? So I'm going to cut here and here, okay? And then here and here, okay? So I'm cutting up those little lines, okay? Now, if you want to draw the lines on, you can. So I'm thinking that my path might be somewhere in the middle of there, okay? So if you kind of open it up, my path is there, okay? So you can kind of see where I've done what I've done. Okay, moment of truth. Okay, you're going to do the cuts, and you don't need to cut too far. Okay, so I'm just cutting up those two lines, and like I say, you get a grown-up to help, and this is why it's really important to have the glue. Okay, really well done. And again, okay, and you're going to see what these will become in a minute. So you should have a little flap and a little flap. Okay, so it will open, okay? So you're cutting down the closed edge, okay, not the open edge. And try not to go too close to the edge, because obviously you don't want it to be bendy, okay? And I've gone a little bit further than I actually drew my lines, but that's okay, just trying to make them even. Okay, so now, hopefully you can see it. If I hold it up, you can see that I have got a little cut there. Can you see? It's moving underneath my finger as I'm pushing it. And I've got another one here, and I'm just gently pushing it. Can you see with my finger? And again, okay, and that's what you want to do. So you want to push from the back with your finger, okay, and you're going to push and just gently, hopefully you can see what I'm doing, okay, to make the little pieces stand up, okay, like so. Now, if you think you want the characters to be further forward, which I think I might, okay, very easy to do. Just push the things down, okay, and just continue on with that cut. So just do a little bit and see how far you want them. So I'm going to take this one a bit further so that Harry, Ron and Hermione are a bit further forward. I'm going to take the Whomping Willow forward just a little bit, just a little tiny bit. So this is where your grown-up might help you, but I have done this before with other classes and they've all managed fine. And I'm not actually altering this one, I'm going to leave that one where it is. Okay, so again, it's not on the open edge, it's on the cut edge. So now when I push them up, okay, so you want it to come forward like so. Okay, and you should have something that looks similar, okay, to mine. So if I turn it that way, you can see the little edges coming up. And all you're going to do is you're just going to bend them all up so that they really stand kind of firmly. And that's why the glue is important, okay? You want to make sure that everything is sticking, okay? So hopefully you've got something that looks a little bit like mine. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the video now, okay, and then I'll just move everything around a little because obviously I want to help you with the next stage of how we're going to do the cardboard bits, because obviously you can see these sections at the moment, okay, which we're not going to want to do. We're going to want to see the characters, okay? So I'm just going to stop it and I'll rearrange everything and then I'll come back. Hopefully you've got that far with me. Well done. Okay, so the next stage of this is obviously to make the little characters, and we want to make them stand up. So we're going to use some cardboard that you might have had, well, will have definitely had, left over from your cereal box or whatever. Okay, now this bit has got little sections on it, so you wouldn't want to use something like this, but I have cut 4 little pieces, and they're just small because they don't need to be too big, because obviously we're going to put the characters onto this stage now. Okay, so I've got 4. They're just there to help me to work out what size I'm going to do the pieces. Okay, so if we take one of the pieces of cardboard, okay, you can see that again you've got your cereal box bit on the back. It doesn't matter if you've got a little bit of you know, rough cardboard, because you're going to put the paper over the top like we did before. So I think that I'm going to put the children here, okay, so Harry, Hermione and Ron, And I am going to, hopefully, if you can see, if I turn it that way, you can see how it's going to look. So you want to roughly estimate how high you want the cardboard to be, okay? So it needs to cover these little pieces here, so it needs to be higher than that section, okay? So you can see that my cardboard will cover that quite nicely, okay? And I'm going to probably cut the end off this side and a little bit off the top. So I'm going to do that now. I'm just going to move that back around. Okay, so if you take your scissors, and I'm just going to snip just a little bit off the end. Okay, like so. Okay, and I'm going to take a little bit off the top. Okay, so I've made my cardboard smaller. And again, I'm going to just test to see how it will look. Okay, so you can hopefully see against the background that the children, because they're in the foreground, they're going to be bigger and they want to be standing against the castle. Okay, so I might take a little bit more off. Okay, so this is just a case of trial and error. So I've taken a little bit more off. I've just got a little rectangle there, and that is now fitting nicely in between the path and the castle behind. And you won't see this line here, you won't see that. So you're going to roughly estimate. So that's the one for the children. Okay, so I might just jot that on there. Okay, so I might just put a H for Harry, a H for Hermione, and a R for Ron. Okay, just on there to remind me, and I'm going to keep that to one side just for now. Okay, so the other characters that I want the Whomping Willow on this side. Now you can see that my cardboard has got some little edges there. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the off. Okay, and there's a little bit of cutting, but this is a more crafty project. It's drawing and craft together, which is good. So I've made it so it's roughly rectangular. Now it doesn't have to be a complete rectangle, because at the end you're going to cut off all the background. So you're going to look again and just see, hold it against it and see how high you want the tree to be. Now this is obviously too high. Okay, when you look at it, it's quite a lot bigger than it needs to be. So I'm going to take a little chunk off the top. Okay, and I'm just cutting these and moving them out of the way, and that looks better. And then I want to look at the children as well, because obviously we don't want the children to be as high as the tree. Okay, so that looks pretty good to me. So this is all about estimating and just using, you know, your eye to work out how big you want everything to be. And I think the tree needs to be narrower. Okay, it doesn't need to be as wide as that. So I'm going to take a little bit off the side, so it's a thinner rectangle now. So if I put that up there, and you can see, hopefully you can see how it's working. And then I can use this as my template to draw my tree onto. And then obviously we'll cut them out so that it'll be thinner. You won't see this whole rectangle, which I'll explain to you in a minute. Okay, so I might just put a W on there so that I've got my two little bits of card and I know what I'm doing. And then the last character I'm going to do, probably on this side, is going to be Hagrid. So again, this rectangle's really big. I'm going to just take a section off. It's quite wide. He's not going to be that wide. So I'm just estimating how big Hagrid would be. Now he's taller than the children, isn't he? And he's probably not quite as tall as the tree. So just estimate, okay? I'm going to take a little bit off the top. Okay, so I'm just going down, and each time I'm kind of keeping it like a rectangle, and I'm testing each time to see how it will work against the background. Okay, and I think he's still too wide because he's only one person. Okay, so a little bit more off the end like that. So it's quite a small, narrow piece of cardboard, but you can see, hopefully, that once you cut Hagrid out, you'll be able to see the nice trees behind. Okay, and you'll have the children here and the tree here. Okay, so again, I'm just going to put a little mark on there so I know which one's which. Okay, so I've got 3 pieces of cardboard. I'm just going to move this one out of the way so I don't need it at the moment, now that I've got my estimation of what I'm doing. Ooh. So I'll just get another piece of paper so you can see. So on here I've got my 3 sections of cardboard, and I'm working out how they would go on my actual stage. So I would have the children in this one, the Willow in this one, and then Hagrid in this one. And because he's a bit further back, we're going to make him as big as we can. Okay, and the children are going to be bigger because they're going to be near the foreground, so hopefully it will all work. Okay, so once you've got your 3 little rectangles, basically what you're going to do is you're just going to spread them out so you can draw easily onto these pieces of cardboard. whoops, that was my Pritt stick falling over. Okay, so I'm just going to hold it down and I'm just going to do what we did before, which is I'm just going to trace around and just use my rectangle shape as a guide to draw in. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. And I'm going to do the same with this section, and it doesn't need to be perfect. This is just a guide because we're going to cut out our little pieces, which I'll help you with in a minute, and then I'll put the Whomping Willow on this side. And remember, that's going to be slightly taller than the children, even though it's behind them, it still needs to be taller because it's obviously it's a tree, isn't it? Okay, so you've got your little boxes. Now, if it helps, okay, you can write on the top above. So this might be Hagrid there, Hermione, Harry, Ron there, and then the Whomping Willow there, just so you remember. If that helps you, that's fine. Okay, so we can keep those little pieces of card. We need to just put those maybe on our stage set that we've created. Okay, and remember what I said, this can be anything. So, you know, if you want this to be a dragon, it's a dragon. If you want it to be, you know, a volcano or a Jigglypuff or whatever, okay, you just need to think about what you're going to draw on each of your cards, okay? And as I've said, it doesn't need to be what I've done, you know, mermaids, whatever it wants to be, a rocket, etc. Okay, so think about the things that you might like to be standing up in your stage set. So I'm going to put those to one side so that you can see that they're out of the way and that we've just got now our little rectangles in here, okay, to be able to work on. And I'm just going to move my camera just down slightly, hopefully that wasn't too wiggly for you. Okay, there we go, that's a bit better. Okay, so hopefully you can see now my sections that I've got nice and clearly. Okay, so we're going to draw again on these sections, and we're going to think about how we want to create the characters, okay, and then obviously we're going to colour them. You can watch me do that, and then we'll get to the point where we're going to assemble the piece all together, and you'll have a three-dimensional piece of artwork, which is really good fun to do. Okay, so I'm probably going to start with the centre one, okay, and then do this one, then do this one. Now, what I was thinking was I might do like quite a cute Harry Potter rather than, you know, necessarily trying to make him completely lifelike. So that might mean that he's a little bit more like a bobblehead Harry Potter, if you know what I mean, where his head's slightly oversized. Okay, and I'm going to try and put them in all three together, but obviously Harry's the main kind of character in this series, so I want to make him kind of, you know, the biggest if I can. So I'm going to draw their heads and then their little bodies, and remember, you've only got a small space, so you just want to go, you know, carefully when you're doing your drawing. And the only way really to have a go at this section is just to, you know, use your imagination, and you can watch me draw, and then if you want to copy what I've done, you can definitely do that. And obviously if you're doing your own thing, you can just work at your own pace. Okay, so just make sure your pencil's nice and sharp so that you can, you know, kind of fit everything in. So what I'm going to do, if you're doing the same as me, okay, you can follow along at this point. If you're doing your own thing, you're just going to take the time to draw your own kind of characters. So I'm going to put in there Harry's head first, and I'm going to give him, you know, quite an oversized head, like I've said. Okay, so I'm just going to put in his head, and remember that I can edit this as I go. Okay, so his head's in, it's quite oversized and it's quite rounded, okay, because we want him to kind of be a cute Harry Potter in a way. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of add his body in just roughly, okay, and I'm going to put his scarf in and things like that. So I'm going to go straight underneath the neck, okay, so we won't see his neck, we're just going to see his scarf, okay, and obviously we know that the Hogwarts scarves are red and yellow, so I'm going to put in some little lines to show that. Okay, don't worry, we're going to come to his face and his hair in a minute, we just want to get the body in. Okay, so at this point, obviously he wears like a cloak, doesn't he? A cape. So I'm just going to put that in, and it goes almost down to the ground here. Okay, and he looks a little weird at the moment, but don't worry, he will come together. So our cape is going to come, or our cloak is going to come all the way down, nearly to the bottom. And it's going to hang open. So I'm going to draw a line coming down like so. And these are your drawings, so you can make them however you like. Okay, so that's his cloak on one side and that's his cloak on the other. And I'm going to put his little arm coming out from this side. And I'm going to give him fairly big wizardy sleeves. And obviously I'm going to actually put his little wand there. Okay, and that might come in front of Hermione, but that is okay. We don't mind, okay? So I'm going to put his little wand there in his hand. Okay, so it looks like he's holding it. And then his other arm is just, I'm just going to have it just come down by his side. Okay, so you're not going to see much of that other hand. And he's like a little cartoon Harry Potter. Okay, so we're going to do little trousers because we can see that he wears those. Okay, we're going to give a little bit of little leg of his trouser there, and his little shoes will become like a little semicircle at the front because you're only going to see the front of his shoes. So again, he might have a little, I think he wears a jumper actually, so I'm going to give him a little v-neck jumper, and you can see how I'm just building this up slowly, and you can colour and draw however you like, but this is the bit where you can take your time, okay, to make it look really nice. And I'm going to actually do the scarf hanging down over his cloak, which is why I've made that side just slightly wider. Okay, and we could give it a little tassel at the end, and again we want those red and yellow stripes. Okay, so he's looking quite kind of cute at the moment. So then let's put in his oversized glasses, because obviously we want to do that as well, and we might put his hair in. Now if you want to give him the trademark scar, you can. So I'm just going to put his hairline in, and it's going to be quite, you know, a cute hairstyle. I'm not trying to make it too realistic on this, and I'm going to put his little ear in the side there and his little ear in the side there. So hopefully you can just see as I'm drawing what I'm doing, fingers crossed. And then I'm going to put in some really nice big glasses here. Okay, so he's starting now to look a little bit more like Harry. And I'm going to put the little legs of his glasses just going kind of towards his ears. And we need a little bit in the middle that goes over the bridge of his nose. And I'm not going to draw his nose. I'm just going to give him a little smile like that. Okay, and inside the glasses, okay, because we're going to put this in obviously in dark, so you'll be able to see the rims of his glasses. And then inside we want to draw his little eyes. Okay, and I'm going to give him a pupil like so. Okay, and hopefully that will come all together when we draw at the end and we go over everything. Okay, so that's our first character, and you can maybe bring his hair down a little if you want, okay, because you're going to colour him in anyway. Okay, so that's Harry. So let's put Hermione in this side. Now his wand might come over in front of her, and that's all right. Okay, so we're going to put, I'm going to do her hair first actually. Okay, so I can get it in, and she has like a little side parting, doesn't she? And her fringe comes across her face, and you can just take your time and draw as you see fit. Okay, so I'm going to put her face in like so. So the one's coming slightly in front of her, but that's okay. Don't worry about that. And then her hair is going to go down behind her, which I'll show you how to do. And again, I might give her the little scarf around her neck, just like so. Okay, and again, now she doesn't wear glasses, but I'm going to give her some oversized eyes, so she looks kind of cute. Some little eyelashes at the side there. Okay, and you can spend time drawing your own. And obviously she's got a little eyebrow on show there. And again, I'm not going to give her a nose, I'm just going to give her a little cute mouth. And again, the same kind of thing with the cloak. You're going to draw down on either side, and you're going to put her behind Harry. Okay, so I'm going to put her arm just coming down around the side here, and a little hand there, and I'm going to have her wand be downwards. She's pointing it down, she's not going to cast a spell yet. Okay, and then the cloak goes in, and it comes, you know, quite far down, a bit like Harry's, and then the same on this other side here. Okay, so you can just see the cloak behind. Okay, and you can just take your time to draw these. And then she wears a little skirt, doesn't she? So a little skirt there, and a little line where her jumper would go, and we'll put her scarf behind. Okay, and then she might have her little legs coming down, just like Harry, and those little semicircles for her shoes, and you can give her some little socks, okay, to show that she's wearing a little skirt there. Okay, and so you've got her in behind, and you can just put her hair in like so, and we can colour that in. Okay, and then I'm going to give her 2 little dots in her eyes, which you'll come to at the end. And then the same kind of thing for Ron. We're going to put him in the background again, so I'm just going to put his head in, and it's just going to be a little bit oversized. And I'm using up the whole rectangle if I can, because we're going to cut round the edge, which I'll show you how to do shortly. Okay, so again, he's wearing the scarf, and he's wearing his cape as well, his cloak as well. So just down behind Harry, and it wants to be roughly the same length, a little bit shorter perhaps. Okay, and you're going to put the same kind of outfit on both of them. Okay, and we'll be able to tell the difference obviously when we colour. Okay, so that his cloak's going to come down, and his little arm we'll put in there, look, and he can have a little hand just there as if it's in his pocket. Okay, his cloak's going to come down, little shoes at the front here, little trouser legs going up, little line across, and I'm going to give Ron a little V-neck jumper there as well, and we'll just put his shoulder in like so. Okay, so again, he's going to have slightly oversized eyes, a little smile, and then we'll give him a little bit of kind of Ron hair at the side there, so it's a little bit messy, isn't it, Ron's hair? So just add that to the outside of his head there. You might not see his ears on that one because obviously he's got a slightly different kind of hairstyle to Harry. Some little lights in his eyes there, and we might just give him a couple of little eyebrows like so. Okay, so there we go, that's our first drawing done. Okay, so that is the children that are going to be in front of the castle. Okay, so what we want to do at this point is we want to then go on to use our other boxes, and we want to think about how we could use the Whomping Willow, okay, to kind of give that extra little bit of detail, and then we can cut that out at the end. Okay, so we're going to put the Whomping Willow on this one here. So if I just move my paper over slightly, okay, then you can see what I'm going to do. So we know that the Whomping Willow is twisted, hasn't it? It's got a lovely kind of twisted root. So I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to just do almost just like a normal kind of tree, just a shape going up, okay? And then the branches come out into those kind of funny arms that they've got, and at the end they're rounded like that. Okay, so it's not like a normal tree. I'm going to put another one in like so, and you can see it's coming together. Another one at the top, and they are rounded, and I'm going to put 2 on that one. Okay, so if you're copying along with my version, you know, you can copy my tree. Okay, and if you're doing your own thing, you can just take time to do your own style of drawing. Okay, so I'm just putting those extra details in. Now, at this point, we want to add the twists. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the twist kind of come across the branches of the tree. Okay, so I'm going to put a lump coming out on either side. Okay, so it's going to look like it's twisting around, and then another kind of a big kind of twist on that side, and it's going to come into the roots at the bottom like that. So it will come together. Okay, so you just need to focus on what you're doing, and then we're going to put in a couple of little roots at the bottom to make it look like it's twisting around the ground. And the way to make it look twisted is to put in some twisty lines going the way that you want it to twist and shape between the branches. Okay, so you can see that it's starting to twist that way, and then on this side we're going to have it twisting downwards, so it wants to twist away from the central point of the tree. Okay, and these are obviously going to be on the ground, and then to emphasize the twist you want to put in some kind of vertical lines going up these branches, so you can see that that's the direction they're going in. Okay, and I'm just drawing it in pencil first, okay, until I'm happy and I've got that twist in. Okay, so now you can see that it looks like it's twisting around, and then all we're going to do is we're going to add some, you know, and I'm going right to the edge of the rectangle at this point. Okay, so I'm going to put in some kind of whomping willow ends of the branches there. Okay, so I'm going right to the edge of my rectangle, so we're not going to cut out too much here. Okay, so again, you're just putting all the bits of the detail in, because the more details your set is, the better it will look in the end. And these are kind of like whomping willow fingers, aren't they, at the end of these weird kind of gnarly branches. Okay, and just take it just to the edge of the card, because then you're going to change the background, so you can put in a background behind it. And I might add just another little one there, just for a little bit of interest. Okay, because I want to fill that bit of card. Okay, and I'm going to put those whomping willow kind of finger-like branches coming off it. Okay, so hopefully you can see what it looks like from that point. Okay, so our last kind of character is going to be Hagrid. So, you know, you can have a little look at images online if that helps you. You know, I did have a quick look for my Harry Potter ones. Okay, and we're going to put Hagrid in. Obviously Hagrid's got a massive beard, hasn't he, and hair and all kinds of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make him quite big. Okay, so Harry wasn't quite as big, but we're going to make Hagrid quite large. He wants to fill this, almost this whole rectangle, I think. So I'm going to put his head in first. And again, we're kind of doing these cute kind of oversized kind of characters. Okay, so I'm just sketching very lightly, because obviously his hair is going to be at the top here. Okay, so I've put in my circle, and now I'm going to give him this kind of shape of hair that's going to go all the way kind of around, and I'm making it bushy because that's what he looks like. And I'm bringing it down, and he's got a beard, so I'm going to put in his little eyes. Okay, there we go. And he doesn't have a nose like the other ones. Okay, I'll put in his little bushy eyebrows, you know, above his eyes. You can do that as well if you're doing the same as me. And then he has a beard, so the beard kind of goes around his face. So it looks a bit odd at the moment, doesn't it? And then we've got a little section here where his mouth would be in there. And then his beard, you're going to draw down, you know, like so, to make it a big kind of beard face. Beardy face that he's got. And his hair's going to come down the other side. Okay, and he's starting to kind of come together now. So obviously you're going to make these eyes a little darker. You know, so hopefully you can see as we're going along what he's going to look like. And don't worry if the top of his head is a little flat, because you can just edit that on your card. Okay, so hopefully you're getting the idea. And obviously once we colour him in and everything, he'll look really good. Okay, so just keep thinking about what you're doing. And then we're going to make him wear his kind of coat that he has. So I'm going to put in his arms just at his sides, little hands there, because we're kind of making him like a cartoony kind of Hagrid rather than necessarily real Hagrid. Okay, and again I'm going to put his coat coming down the middle there, like so, and little arms going up, so you can see where his arms go. That's his coat going in there. And again, I haven't had to edit too much on this one, which is quite nice for a change. And again, just like we did with the children, his little boots, well, it's not little boots, although they're quite big black boots that he wears, so they can go in at the front, and we can colour those in later. And again, he's got little kind of trouser legs that we need to see, and he's got a big belt. I'm going to give him a big belt there with a buckle, I think. And he wears like a little waistcoat type thing that's a bit scruffy, isn't it, under there, so I'm going to give him some buttons like so. Okay, and his beard will kind of come out a little bit here on either side, and once we get him all kind of fine lined in, he's going to look really good. So I'm just making his eyes a bit bigger, okay, so just to give him that kind of cute feeling. Okay, I might want his hair to come out a bit more on this side. It looks too thin on this side, so I'm just going to edit, and I'm going to put it out, coming out a bit further. Okay, so it's a bit more bushy, and it's still in the rectangle, and that's all you need to think about. It just needs to stay within the rectangle. Okay, so at this point you can see that I've got my 3 drawings. Now they're quite detailed, okay, and if yours aren't as detailed as mine, that's fine. Obviously I'm quite enjoying this project, so I'm using my imagination to have a go at all of these, and I'm thinking that probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my fine liner, either my biro or my kind of ink one, whichever one you've got. Hopefully you might have either of those, and I'm going to outline these characters in fine liner rather than felt tip, because obviously they're quite fine and I want the details to be really shown up well. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll outline them, and then I'm just going to go straight into the colouring rather than stopping the video to explain. I'm sure you'll understand what I'm going to do as I do it, and then I can just keep colouring and you can keep watching, and then I'll show you how to put them onto the cardboard and how to assemble them at the end. So I'll pause the video at this point, and then you can see from there. So hopefully you can see that I've coloured all of my little characters in, and what I've done is I have put the ground in. So I've put dark green at the bottom and then some little light green at the top. Okay, and I've just left the rectangles so that we can work out what we're going to do once we've cut them out. So the next thing you need is some scissors, okay, and I'm literally just going to cut through the whole paper so that it makes it easier for me to cut out each one. So I'm going to start with Hagrid, and I'm going to cut the bottom straight across, and then I'm going to use my scissors and I'm just going to cut around the edge. Okay, so hopefully you can see. Now if you need a little bit of help with this, you can have a little bit of help from a grown-up, but you might be, you know, all right at cutting and you can have a go yourself, and that would be brilliant. And you don't need to get it perfect, okay, you just need to get it roughly the same. Now if there's any little white bits, which there are on mine, all you need to do is just colour those bits in green, because that will be your background. Okay, so hopefully you should be able to see the little Hagrid there cut out. Okay, I'm just going to move him out the way, so if you can't see him, he's just over here. Right, next ones, okay, is Ron, Hermione and Harry, and again we're going to cut straight along using the rectangle to help us. Okay, and I'm going to cut up the side of that rectangle, then I'm just going to go in around by Ron's little head there, and I'm just taking my time, and hopefully you've got some nice roundy edges scissors, Okay, and I'm just going into the little gaps in between them. And whatever you've managed to draw, you can just gently cut around the outside like so. Okay, so can you see what I've got there now? Now, what you can see is there's little gaps in the background here, and our characters are going to be up against the castle. So the castle was grey, if you remember rightly, so I'm just going to put in a little light grey background there, not a lot. I'm just going to colour in just behind them. It's hardly anything, but it'll hopefully make it look like they're in front of the castle. And I'm just going to put the green at the bottom, just around them. Okay, and I didn't know how far up to do the green until I'd cut out, if that makes sense. So I put a little bit of dark green at the bottom, as you can see, and then light green to finish. Okay, so you can see they're coming together. Now, the Bumping Willow looks quite complicated, okay, but what I would suggest you do, if you've got something complicated like I've got, okay, cut along the bottom, and this bit you can probably get quite close, so that's what I'm going to try and do. I'm just going to try and cut close to the edge, like so, but then I'm going to use the rectangle to help me with the rest. I'm not going to try to cut out all of those details, okay, because that would be too complicated. Even for me, it would be too complicated. So you can see what I'm doing. And then at the bottom, again, I'm just going to try my best to just cut around the little bits of grass. I'm not worrying, because obviously I can colour those in again, and around the tree trunk. And I might just try to go, you know, just around these little branches, but they don't need to be perfect. Okay, so I'm just moving my piece as I'm cutting it. So hopefully you might end up with something like that. Okay, so if one of your pieces has got like a rectangle side, that again doesn't matter, because obviously it's going in front of the castle. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lightly shade in the background rather than blue like it would be the sky. I mean, I suppose I could do it black like the night sky, couldn't I? Maybe I could do that. That's what I might do. And then you can maybe think that it might be in front of the tree. So yes, I'm going to do that. So just go around your drawing. Okay, and that might look really good. Okay, and I'm just going to go in between the little gaps there, just showing that there's a little bit of night sky kind of going on behind that tree there. Okay, and I'm just shading colouring the biggest bits. I'm not worrying about, you know, all the bits, okay, because you won't be able to necessarily do all of them if your drawing's really detailed like mine. So just put in some little, you know, just edges really, just so that it's not white at the top. Okay, and if you wanted to do it, you know, an underwater colour, because that's your theme, then that's fine, you can do that. Okay, so you're just filling in with the background colour, so you've got to kind of think a little, okay, but it's not too complicated. You can work out roughly what you're going to do, and hopefully it'll look really good. And I'm just going to go around the edge of the tree. Okay, so just that little bit might be black, and then I'm going to put the rest of it in using my light green. So I'm just going to pop it on a little bit of paper, because that makes it easier for me just to colour. Okay, and so I've got all the edges done like so. Okay, there's a little bit of black there that I've missed, so I'm just going to do that quickly. Okay, like so. Okay, so hopefully you can see what I've done with each of my little pieces. So we've got the Whomping Willow, that's how they would be on the actual piece of artwork. Okay, so you've got them like that. So I think that you can probably tell what we're going to do next, and we're nearly finished. Sorry if you heard me moving my pens and things out of the way. We're going to bring back in our little pieces of cardboard that we were working on, and like I said, it was quite handy just to label them so you could see which ones are which. Okay, so obviously our little ones are going to go on there, and on there. Okay, so again, I'm just going to move these out of the way. I'll do Hagrid first. So what I told you the last time was, you know, be quite generous with the glue, okay? And that's the same for this as well. I'm just going to put a little bit of paper down on my table, which you can do the same. Now, just be careful. You don't want to rip, you know, your drawings that you spent ages on, okay? So just do it gently, okay? And just lift him up, and then you're going to place him, give him a good squish onto your cardboard background, and make sure that it's the right one. And don't worry if there's a little bit over the top or at the edge, that's okay, we're going to come back to that. So do that on all of them. Okay, so I'm just going to turn my piece of paper over to do the Whomping Willow. And again, I'm just making sure that I glue all the way around the edge, it's really important. And just take your time doing it, no need to rush. Okay, I'd rather you took your time and had a nice glued finished piece than didn't. Okay, and you can see it's just fitting in because I used that rectangle to help me, and don't worry about that little bit there, that's fine. Okay, so don't worry about that. Okay, and your last section, okay, is Harry and Ron and Hermione. So just a little bit of glue, just making sure it goes all the way up to their heads, and nice an amount on the bottom there, so it'll be held in place, and you're going to flip them over and pop them onto your little pieces of card. Okay, and like I say, don't worry if they're not exact, it's just to hold them up firmly. Okay, right, so now we've got them cut out as so, we're basically going to do the same thing again. So we're just going to try and get rid of this brown background. So I'm just going to cut carefully as close as I can around the little heads or whatever you've drawn. Okay, and you've already managed to cut it once, and hopefully the cereal box isn't too tricky to cut because the card isn't that thick. Okay, and I'm just being careful and just taking my time. Okay, and just getting rid of any little bits of card. And there you go, you can see that that one is complete. So I can see here there's a little bit of Hermione's hair there that's still white. So I'm just going to finish that off, and you can do that too if you want. Okay, so that's the first one. So again, with Hagrid it's the same thing. You're just going to do a little bit of cutting out as close as you can get. But like I say, hopefully you were able to cut your drawings out once, so you'll be able to cut them out again. So there's our little Hagrid. And the Whomping Willow, it was a little trickier, but I'm not worrying too much about it because the brown, it won't really matter if it shows on my one because it'll just look like it's part of the tree. Okay, so I'm getting there now. Okay, I'm going to go up the side and around those little curves, and I'm just taking my time, and hopefully you can see that I'm moving the actual piece rather than trying to move the scissors. Okay, that's usually a good little trick there. Okay, so hopefully you can see what I did there. Okay, great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to attach it. I'm just going to clear my little bits of cardboard out of the way so that we can work on the next stage. So at this point, I'm just going to move them just down, just out of the way a minute. Okay, so hopefully you can still see them at the bottom there. And I'm going to bring back in my actual stage. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to glue the characters to the base, and I'll show you how to do that next. Okay, so you've got your background, you've got your characters, okay, the things that you're going to stick in. Okay, so this is where you need to use your glue again. So I'm going to glue Hagrid first, and he's going to go here. Okay, and as you can see, he looks like he's standing up, and I'll show you the finished effect shortly. So, good bit of glue on the back there, okay, good bit of glue. And then all you're going to do, I should just move those out of the way, is you're going to put your finger in the little hole, I don't know if you can see at the back there, okay, so you can put your finger in and just press him down, so that when you look at him, he looks like he's standing up against the background. I'm hoping that you're getting the idea there. And when I turn him around, you can see how he's joined on at the back, okay, just with glue. Okay, so it's like a little bit of an optical effect. So when I put it down, you're almost looking down on the top of his head. So you're going to repeat the same process. I'm going to leave the children till last. So the Whomping Willow is next. It's going to go here. So again, good bit of glue on the bottom. Give it a good, you can see I'm putting quite a lot on because I want it to hold in place. Okay, you could always use tape for this, but I think the glue is better. Okay, and again, you're just going to fix it to your background. Okay, and hopefully you can see down the edge there what I've done. Okay, and I'm just using my fingers just to hold it together. Okay, and if I tip it to the top, you can see that you've got your join here and then your card. But if you turn it to the front, it looks like he's standing up. And I will show it to you at the end once it's all assembled. And it actually looks quite good against the grey background, I think, doesn't it? So, sorry, the black background looks really good against that. Okay, so last section, same again. Okay, now I'm going to put the glue mainly behind Hermione because I want them to be kind of like across in front of the Whomping Willow. So I'm going to put mainly glue here. So there's no glue actually going on the side of Ron because I don't need it to be on that side. And then again, if I tip it up, you can then position it. So you can see how Hermione is in front of the Whomping Willow. So I'm happy with that positioning. So I'm just going to squeeze together and hopefully you can see what I'm doing from above there, where I'm just putting my fingers into the little gaps and I'm making sure that everything is really nice and secure there. Okay, now I've got glue all over my fingers. So what I'm going to do is, before I show you, I'll flip it over and then I'll come back to you and I'll show you it actually how it looks once it's finished, when I've washed my hands, because I've got glue all over them, which you might do as well. So if I turn it like that, okay, you probably get a good idea of what it's looking like so far. Okay, and if I turn it like that, you can hopefully see the little flaps behind, and you can't see those. So the part about, you know, when you'd coloured the castle or you'd coloured in the trees behind, you can't see that when you turn it like so. Okay, and it's a really good piece. So I'm going to go and wash my hands and then I'll come back and show you exactly what to do next. Okay. Okay, so hopefully you can see the effect that it's created. So it looks like the characters are standing in front of the castle and in front of the trees, and you can see the castle behind the Whomping Willow and behind the children. Okay, and if you look really carefully, you know, you can see the path, the details and everything, and you can see the craters that I put on the moon and the stars and everything, and you get a really good idea of how it looks. So I'm just going to try and move the camera up so that you can see what it looks like behind. Okay, so that's your flaps, okay, behind, and then if you bring it back down again, okay, you get that lovely 3D effect. Okay, and I've just got mine standing up at the edge of my table just against the wall, but it does freestand. Okay, so hopefully you've got the idea of how that works. It's quite odd doing a freehand filming, but it seems to be working, so hopefully you've got the idea. So you can see why I coloured in the base of the little characters green. Okay, so it blends in to whatever background or foreground you've got. Okay, so whatever's behind you want to put above them, and whatever's below on the foreground section, you know, say it was lava, say it was a dancing disco floor or whatever, you want to put that dancing disco floor or the lava at the bottom of whatever characters you're choosing to do. Okay, so I hope that I'm going to see some really interesting little dioramas, I think is what they're actually called, okay, where you make a three-dimensional little sculpture. And these are really good. I've used these when I used to actually teach English. I used to use these and we used to make them so that we could write stories using a set, you know, like a setting kind of description piece. So we used to do those quite a lot. So it's quite a good fun project. It does take a little bit of time. I don't know how long it's taken me, to be honest. And that's a good sign, really, because it shows that I've actually just really enjoyed making this today, and it's quite nice for me to be able to do something three-dimensional, and I hope that you'll have a go at it and that you'll really enjoy it and that you'll use your imagination, you know, to either create something like mine, which is great, you know, if you want to copy a Harry Potter theme, brilliant, I know how popular it is. If you want to do something completely yourself, I'd love to see what you come up with. It is literally totally and utterly up to you. So the only thing I would say is try and think about what could be in the background. You know, the castle's really big, so, you know, if you're doing a planet or something, you could do like the galaxy in the background, or if you're doing an underwater theme, you know, you might have a shipwreck in the back, or you know, a giant whale or something like that. If you were doing a Pokemon kind of one, you might have a favourite setting from where they live. I actually don't know where they live, so sorry about that, but I'm sure if you're into Pokemon you will know. So think about what could be in the distance, okay? So like the castle in mine is in the distance, the car, the flying car, is in the distance. So, you know, think about that, because when you're going to stand it up, that's what you want to see. And at the bottom, you can see how my path kind of curves around really nicely. But it's just a curved line, really. It just looks 3D when we put it on all together, which is the idea. Okay, so think about your foreground. It doesn't need to be complicated at all, really. Okay, the only things you need to remember is that the sky or your background needs to come down to that horizontal line in the middle, and that your bases of your characters need to be the same kind of colours as the base bit, the foreground part of your design. So I hope that you've really enjoyed it. I hope you've had fun. I hope that you've been able to follow along with this one, because it is slightly more crafty than drawing, but there's a lot of drawing involved. Like I say, I had great fun doing this, and I hope that your imaginations run wild and you enjoy creating something that's really fun. You can keep it, and yeah, it's 3-dimensional, and I think once you get the hang of doing these, you could do them over and over again. It's one of those projects. Okay, so fingers crossed you've all been able to produce something really lovely. Please send me some photographs if you do manage to create something like this. I would love to see them, because it's a different kind of project for Art4 to do, so I hope that you've enjoyed it. Lovely, well done, fingers crossed. I'll look forward to seeing your art. Fantastic.